All right, so the first thing I'm going to look at is up front. I've replaced just about everything because I felt like this was the most important part of the trailer. I didn't want anything to happen back here while it's connected. So there are new safety chains under here. Um, there is a 7-pin connector right here. The reason I went with the 7-pin is because it allows the battery to be charged while the car is running. So I thought that was pretty cool. Then I put in this new coupler attachment, I'm not sure what you call it, and then this safety pin right here. And then over here I bought a new interstate battery, and like I said, it's charged by the car, which is cool. And then the propane tank was included, but I had it filled and checked to make sure it was safe, but it doesn't connect to anything in the trailer since the stove and sink was taken out. But it's great for if you wanted to attach it to a camping stove or anything else that needs propane. All right, so next I'm going to walk you around the outside of the camper. So up top you have a roof rack. I personally didn't use it because I have a roof rack on my car, but it seems fine, but that will have to be your judgment call. Yeah, I would feel comfortable using it, but I just didn't need to. Down here, I replaced a couple of these side lights because they had cracks in them. Right here would be where the water would have gone to the sink, I'm assuming, but that's not needed anymore since the sink and stove was taken out. Over here is the shore power hookup, so the cord to hook up to shore power would come right out of there, and I can show you that on the inside. On the roof, I put a roof sealant on it, and then anywhere I felt like there might be any type of a dimple, I guess, or like an indent, I put the piece of a Turnabond over it. I know it doesn't look the greatest, but I just figured I'd rather be safe than sorry. I mean, I literally did it everywhere. Again, not the greatest looking, but I just didn't want any seams to be possibly open for having water get in them. On the back, one of the taillights, I have this piece of electrician's tape here. There's nothing wrong with it, but I actually have two new taillights. If you wanted to replace it and you didn't like this piece of electrician's tape here, you could replace it on your own. But it works totally fine. There's a brand new spare tire. And as far as the tires go themselves, they're brand new as of last summer, and they were repacked, the bearings were, and they're new tires in general. So you should be good to go there. And there's the door. Not sure what else you'd want to see on the outside while it's not popped up. All right, so this is the outside of the pop-up with the canvas, and this canvas is new from Bear Creek. I was pretty impressed with it. I was very skeptical. I didn't think I was going to be able to put it in, but it was pretty straightforward, and for the most part it fits really well. Yeah, I just think the canvas is so important because I didn't want to be sitting in a pop-up that smelled or just felt gross. All right, so it's a little dark in here, but this is the interior. I'm sitting down on one of the beds. I could open up all the windows, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it was like when the windows were closed. These two on the right and on the left, though, actually are kind of cool. They have 3 different layers, so you can pull down the layer like I did or unzip it, and it's still like a kind of a plastic piece to it so that light can come through, but not air. So those two are just for letting in light, but they can also be screens. And then if you really want light everywhere, like you see in a lot of photos, all of these open up for a ton of light. As far as the beds, this bed over here, as you can see, has 4 different pieces because these 2 pieces come off and then they stick underneath the table for storage when you're traveling. So that's actually it allows it to be a bigger bed when you set it up. So that's 4 different pieces. This right here is also another bed. That's where the table is. Like in most campers, the table converts into a bed. I love this part. My 2-year-old loves to play around on this. It also allows an area for if you have a dog or just an extra kid to be able to sleep on. Now over here, I realized when I just went and set this up that our bed is actually in my 2-year-old's room right now because we just took it out a few days ago because he was having trouble sleeping, and we were sleeping on the bed next to his crib. So I promise you that this is all one piece, and the fabric and cushioning is just like that gray one over there. Again, I promise that it does exist. So you're just looking at the underside of the bed without the mattress. I'm 6'3", and I have a couple inches of room to spare. I think next video I'm going to pop up the table and show you what that looks like, and then show you the shore power, the USB and 12-volt outlet, and see if there's anything else. So I figured I'd show you guys underneath the table, the legs. I'm sure at one point, maybe 35 years ago, used to stick to the bottom of the table, but they don't anymore. So I just used just like a Velcro tie to keep the legs up, and then I put some Velcro down here and on the table, so that way it doesn't slide around. And then you can see there's a seat right there and a seat right there. But what I really wanted to show you, and I can't really show you if the table is up, is right here. It's definitely hard to see. I guess you'll just have to take my word for it. There is a 12-volt outlet and 2 USB outlets, which was big for me. I had this added because I really wanted to make sure we could charge our phones or devices in here, because we usually boondock and don't connect to shore power. So that was big for me. And then I don't feel like I totally need to show you this. The legs, fold up and it becomes a table. So that is that part. I forgot to mention, I know I wrote it in the description, all these cushions and foam are brand new. It's another thing I want to make sure of, that I wasn't sleeping on, 35-year-old gross beds. So that's all new. And let's see, there was one other thing. Oh yeah, shore power. So underneath the bench is storage, which is nice. And as you can see, there's a cable right there, and it just goes right through that hole, and that's where you would connect to shore power. If you connect to shore power, what that allows you to do is use this 110 outlet, which would be nice, I guess, if you were, camping at like an RV site. We never really use it, but it does work. I made sure of that. You could use this light up here, but this light also is usable off the 12-volt battery. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so in addition to taking you through the trailer, I wrote in my description that I was going to be very transparent with you. So I'm going to take you through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't think there's really any ugly parts, but there are a couple things that I know if you came out, you might be like, oh, okay, that's not exactly as I had planned. So I'm going to take you through those as well, so that way you know exactly what you're getting, because I'm not here to try and scam anyone. So the first and really the only thing that concerned me when I first saw the trailer was up here on the side. So again, it's kind of hard to see, but in here, just on the side part, not on the roof, but just on the side part, there are a few spots where like the wallpaper is starting to kind of dry, and it just feels like a little bit softer. Not like horribly, but like, I don't know if that means that at some point there was some leaking in here, and I actually poked through the wallpaper to make sure right in here, and then just kind of like taped it back up. But the wood wasn't like moldy or black or like, totally gross or wet. It seemed fine, but it was just a little softer. And that's not like it's the whole side paneling. It was mainly in this area. And but most of it, like the ceiling up here, feels totally fine. Most of it feels totally good, but there's just certain parts of it that don't feel as solid. I asked a couple friends and I asked, like, is this going to be a concern? And they weren't really worried about it, and they have more experience with this stuff than I do. But again, that's not a professional advice. I personally don't know really what could happen. I don't know why it's a huge deal, but that was the thing that concerned me the most. Because when I was looking up when buying a pop-up camper, you want to make sure that like there's no water damage, especially to the floor. There's not to the floor, but that was the only thing that was a little weird for me. So yeah, there is that. It didn't concern me, but I know it might concern you. The second thing is when putting in the canvas, they gave you this strip right here, and I velcroed it to the canvas, and that's where the wire goes. I don't know how you're officially supposed to do it. It was totally separate of the canvas itself. That's why I velcroed it. But then down here, it's kind of just, the wire's just kind of sticking out. Again, didn't bug me, but I know if you were to come in here, you might see this and wonder why that's just sticking out. I'm sure you could probably do it better than I did, and maybe figure out a way to have that be not, noticeable. So that's the second thing. I think there is one thing outside that I'm going to show you. So I'll show you that in the next video. All right, so there are two things actually that I was going to tell you about. When you are driving, the camper kind of slightly has a lean to the driver's side door, and I asked the mechanic about that, and they said it wasn't a big deal. But what that means is when you're going to go put in the door, you have to just slightly, like as you're putting in the door, if you just pull it back towards the center, then the door fits perfectly. But if you go to put in the door and you're like, man, why does this not seem like it fits? Which is what I was thinking the very first time I realized, is because that slight lean. And then as soon as you pull this back, and it's really easy to pull back, then the door fits fine. And then the whole thing feels solid. So that's another kind of weird thing I figured out once I bought the trailer, because the person I bought it from was, didn't really tell me this kind of stuff, and I want to tell you guys. And then the last thing is the camper jacks. So, sorry, I should say the stabilizers, because they're not to prop up the camper, they're just to stabilize it. So there's 4 of these, but 2 of them don't really work. Well, one of them doesn't work, and one of them is a little bit, when it gets lowered, it's kind of at a little bit of an angle. You could still use it, but what I decided to do, and I'll show you, is, and I actually like this just as good. In my car, I just bought 2 scissor jacks on Amazon, and I literally just put these underneath where the jack would be, and I just keep them about at this level, and then I just use them to stabilize. And obviously I would include these when you buy it. So 2 of the stabilizer jacks work well, 2 of them not as much, and so I just use these, and I just store them in the camper. So that, I think, is the last thing that I would say is kind of something that you might be concerned with. All right, okay, so I have the manual here, which I found to be helpful when setting it up because it gives you a step-by-step. I have a bill of sale that we would fill out. Even though I don't think it's mandatory in California, I think it's a good idea. I have the title here, and so it is, I do own it and have it registered. And then over here, I just have some receipts that show you like that I actually bought a new canvas and I did reupholster everything, and just in case you were questioning that. I also have a spare set of keys, and I think that's about it. I also have some additional things that I bought. I bought an extra crank, which that one's pretty nice actually. As I mentioned, I think in a previous video, I don't know why I have 3 of these, but I have 3 of these tail lights. Those are for the scissor jack if you want it. I have an extra side light. There's a little a lock that was already given to me, but I have the keys for it, just in case you wanted to lock up the latches around the camper. These Velcro ties. And I do have a couple of these little clips, because there is support poles underneath the beds that you have to put down, and the support poles clip into these. And at first I thought one of them was loose, so I bought a couple, and I realized you can just kind of pinch them and they tighten up, but in case one does get loose, you can replace them with those. Let's see, I think that's